Good afternoon. First of all, I apologize if you had expected Abby here as well. Unfortunately, Abby couldn't make it today, so you have to do with me. I'm the co-founder of Claro Partners, and I'm going to talk to you about how we need to change our approach for service design to create networked business models. And I would like to make this a little bit interactive because I find that like that it's much nicer to do a presentation, and also it's much nicer for the audience to actually participate. So the first thing I would like to ask is anybody in the room here that would like to mention, just call out a networked business model. What are you thinking about when you see that?
Mobile phones.
Sorry?
Mobile phones.
Mobile phones? What else? Hoover? Uber, yes, exactly. That kind of things we are talking about. So if your Wi-Fi is working or your 3G, please share your thoughts, share what you think. So I'm going to talk about the sharing economy if you want to use that hashtag. So first, just a little bit about Claro, just one slide so you know who we are and where this point of view is coming from. So we are a bunch of people from many different countries. As you see in the bottom, we are 15 people from 12 nationalities, and we are sort of misfits. We don't fit in a traditional design consultancy, traditional management consultancy, or traditional ethnographic research consultancy, because we're operating really on the cross-section of business strategy, social science, and experience design. So the social science to understand the needs of people, experience design to come up with solutions for the needs of those people, and business strategy to fit them into the reality of the market and the companies that we are working with. But it's also that we're taking in business type of insights, and our case study will show that very well. So when we talk about disruptive shifts, what kind of things are we talking about? So we're talking about that the things that we do is delivering business innovation and service design in the context of disruptive shifts. So there's the shift from ownership to access, the shift from services delivered by companies to the services enabled through networks, what we're going to talk about today. But also recently we've been looking at the shift in perspective of looking at data as big data and aggregated resources and oil and mining those data, to looking at data as something that empowers people, as Melanie was saying just in a moment before. And the last thing we're looking at a lot for the last 12 months, we've been working a lot on the shift of the Internet of Information and People to the Internet of Things. So now we're going to focus on these first two shifts. And we're going to share how we think that the approach to service design has to change because of these shifts. So this is very deep work that we are sharing with you today, because this has been the result of 2 6-month global open innovation projects with a number of client companies that were helping us to do this work, and 99 ethnographic sessions. I don't call them interviews because it's also about observation, and also a lot of expert interviews. And from all that data, what you get is really a lot of information, and then the key issue is to synthesize it. So we have around 300 hours of material, and then from that 600 hours of material, and from that we create the business perspective, the people perspective, and the system perspective. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, that hopefully you will find helpful. Sometimes I might go a bit faster over the slides because there's not that much time today, but I'm sharing the presentation on SlideShare, so you can just read back on that later, and you can also request our point of view on these topics. So when we look at this, what is this? Anybody in the room? What is this? Yeah, a garage or? Yeah, yeah. It's any place where people store stuff that they really don't use anymore, right? And this we saw in our research everywhere in the world. And this is what made us think that actually the burden of ownership is challenging the traditional model of the consumption economy. So the joy of ownership goes up even before the moment of acquisition, but then quickly goes down as other stuff in our lives start to ask for our attention. And slowly the burden of ownership goes up, and because other things, sorry, I already said that. So there's a real issue with that, and people start to realize that owning doesn't necessarily is the best way of enjoying. So that's one of the key reasons why this sharing economy or access economy is rising. Because people say, if I have a drill that I use only 10 minutes on average on the whole lifetime of a drill, maybe I shouldn't own a drill. Maybe I should borrow it from a neighbor, or I should rent it from somebody else. So this is now creating this sharing economy where the trust between strangers is the new currency. That's really the difficult thing that you have to make work well. And these network business models are really disrupting traditional ways of doing business. I just highlighted here a few examples for you to give you an idea of what I'm talking about in this terms of disruption, why this is disruptive. So we think about GiveGav. GiveGav has only 34 employees, and the average response time to a customer problem is under 90 seconds. Okay? Anybody in their country has a telco that responds to their problem in 90 seconds? What about 20 minutes before you speak to a human, right? That actually understands what your problem is. So they do that because they're able to achieve that because it's their members that are responding to the problems of other members. Relay rides is totally disrupting the idea of car ownership or traditional car rental models like Hertz or even like Zipcar. Wikipedia made the whole idea of a centrally created encyclopedia like Encarta completely obsolete. And so that's why maybe a few of you in the room don't even know what I'm talking about when I say Encarta. Zopa is really challenging traditional banking model as a peer-to-peer lending and savings service. And then there's this interesting example about Microsoft. So Microsoft has 35,000 engineers and designers who build solutions based on understanding customer needs, sort of the traditional approach. But then there is Intuit, who we have been working with on their QuickBase platform, and they have 50,000 QuickBase users who are exchanging solutions with each other. So the value of the product can really increase when you build a network around it. So we call this participatory service networks, and we define it, and this is maybe it sounds a bit academic, but it really helps to define what it is. So it's a system where value is co-created and exchanged in a distributed way by a network of participants. So it's not an easy sentence, but it has all the elements that are there. But there's many different ways to talk about it, and those are the things that are listed below. Things like peer-to-peer services, sharing economy, collaborative consumption, collaborative production, whatever you want to call it. So we created this map to map out these new models of ownership and value exchange, and you can have access to this map to explore it by yourself. And I just wanted to give you briefly, if we can switch to the internet browser, an idea of what it is. So if you can press the exit button just below the logo. You see the exit? Yeah, that one there. The one that says exit. Yeah, thank you. Now full screen. Thank you. Okay, great. So what we're looking at here is a map of 50 different new business models. It used to be that we were basically buying a product in exchange for money, and now there's, thanks to technology and thanks to the changes in society, all these new business models. So you can have access and explore this later, so just very briefly show what we're looking at. So today what we're talking about is these participatory service networks. And a big part of this map are these participatory service networks. If we go to value creation and exchange, yeah. So almost all of the map that you're seeing are participatory service network models. And let's zoom into the map, into the car vertical, so you have a bit of an idea of what we are talking about. So we have first car sharing. So things like Zipcar, City Car Club, Streetcar here in the UK. Then we have peer-to-peer car rental, relay rides, Whipcar. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. Ride sharing, so people sharing actually the ride, like Go Loco or BlaBlaCar. And car share platforms, where people actually own a car together. So if we click once on the peer-to-peer car rental, if we click once, yeah, and then we click another time on the See More right-hand corner of the Whipcar. Yeah, so here we are mapping out how the model of value exchange is working. So this is all at your disposal to really get inspiration of what these new models of ownership and value exchange can do in terms of creating new business models. So let's go back to the presentation. And the next slide. Oh no, that's me. Sorry. So, what's happening? So the access economy drives new business models, right? So, in a traditional model, we buy a car in return of payment. So we get ownership over a car in return of payment. In these newer access-based models, the ownership indicated with the little crown actually stays with the company, and we just pay for the use of a car. But these new participatory service networks are a bit more complicated, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about networked business models. So here, the role of the company is completely changing. It's no longer this large company that has to buy a lot of assets like cars, but it is a very small company which basically matches supply and demand and provides something critical, which is in this case the insurance, because you're actually not allowed to just rent out your car to just anybody. So this is this whole new emergence of a whole new type of company, which requires a whole rethink of service design. So PSNs are difficult for traditional businesses to adopt. So there's many reasons why that is. I won't go into that now. But I want to talk about how they call for a shift of approach in service design. So in traditional models, we all know, we've all been talking about this the last 2 days, that we have to focus on the customer, we have to design a service, and then we have to deliver it, and we want to own a unique relationship with the customer. So network business models, it's different. It's about uncovering opportunities in a network, enabling exchange to deliver the service, and then identify your role in the ecosystem. So uncovering opportunities in a network. The first one. So when we think about a traditional service business, we have to think about what are our customer needs. That's it. And then we start to develop a service for them. In a networked business model, we have to think about what do my customers need, but also what do they have and what could they be exchanging. So that's already a different way of thinking we have to think about. So what are the key questions for uncovering the opportunities? So the first one is, how are people connected within the network? What is their motivation to join, and what are the values exchanged? So how are people connected within the networks? So this is something interesting we came across in our work, which is that when you ask a lawyer or a doctor or somebody else of high expertise a question, you probably won't understand their answer, right? And this is because there's many levels of difference in experience with that kind of institutional expertise. So what you're looking for and what these networks are really able to provide is what we call lived expertise. So just imagine you're buying a house or you're just diagnosed with some kind of disease, and who do you want to talk to? You want to talk to a doctor or to a lawyer, but you also actually want to talk to a person that just went through that experience. A peer leader, somebody who is just one step above you in terms of experience. So what is their motivation to join? That's another thing you have to think about. There are two very different motivations for people to let them join your network and later to contribute. Very, very different. So what we are talking about for the motivation to join is you need to find a way to provide them with the proverbial peanut. A peanut is something that's tangible, it's small and token-like. People understand, I feel like a peanut. I can sign up for this service, and it's a simple and quick transaction. And then the motivation to contribute is a whole other thing that I'll talk about a little bit later. Then we have to think about what are the values that are being exchanged. So we have connections, knowledge, competencies, and resources. Anybody wants to shout out an example of any of these four? No? So Airbnb is an example of resources, right? The house, your apartment that you make available to other people. Wikipedia is about sharing knowledge with others. LinkedIn is about sharing connections, and Live Mocha, where you can learn languages from other people, is about competencies. So now let's talk about enabling exchanges to deliver a service. So when we think about traditional service design, the one most of us in this room know, we have to design the service journey. But it is really a single user experience, and all those touch points are somehow controlled by the company that is delivering the service. But in the case of a participatory service network, it's not you as a company that is controlling this whole experience, but those are other people that are delivering the service who each have their own little experience journey. So that's what you get when you think about a networked experience. So what are the key questions? How is value exchanged? How to design for a networked experience? How to enable interactions and exchanges? And how to encourage contributions. So the first one is, how is value exchanged? And this is a template that we use in workshops when we develop these new business models. So there's a short description. It talks about who's exchanging the value, what value is exchanged, and how does it work? Sketch out the network. So here we have the example of relay rights. We talked about that a lot already. And you can read this back later if you want to go deeper into this. The other thing we have to think about is how do we design for a networked experience? So a typical journey might be discover, join, use, and extend. We all know this, right? And we have to think about how the person is receiving this service and how the company is providing this service, right? How we are matching up the business processes with the experience of the user. We all know that. So when we think about networked experiences, it becomes one level more complex because we have the car owner and the car user, basically two people that are providing the service to each other, and somehow the platform plays a role as well. So now suddenly we have to think about those three things. So this is another template that we use to think about the service experience of all the different parties that are involved. How do we enable interactions and exchanges? So here it's a lot about trust. And there are three types of trust that we have to think about. The first one is the trust in the value that is being exchanged. You can achieve this with, these star ratings and reviews and things like that you see on those platforms. The second is trust in the platform. So Airbnb, I guess many of you know already, went at great length to really say this is why you can trust us, trust to rent an apartment with us. And the third one is, of course, you need to have trust between the network participants. This trust between strangers that I was talking about. And there are two types of trust that we have to think about here. It's the cognitive trust, the trust that you can get based on very objective measures, like ratings and things like that. And what we call affect-based trust. And affect-based trust is much more difficult to generate in an online platform because it's based on face-to-face interactions. So that's why we always emphasize a lot with our clients that they should be thinking about things like offline events where members of the network can meet, like video chat, things where people can develop that affect-based trust. That's very, very important. People don't want to feel like a small fish in a big pond, in the ocean, sorry. They want to feel like a big fish in a small pond. So that's why you create these little pockets or comfort zones where people have the feeling they know each other and trust each other. So how do we encourage contribution? So unfortunately, there's no such thing as true altruism. Okay, many people, when they do something they say it's out of altruism. There's another thing behind, like feeling better themselves. So people, unfortunately, are really always looking to make contributions in return of a reward. But those rewards can be many different things, and we really have to stress this, that it's very important to think both at rational or functional benefits, like income. I can make some money, I can get access to people, I can get access to information, or things like joy and reputation and belonging, more emotional benefits. So those are the two types of motivations or rewards that you have to think about to give people in those networks to encourage contributions. Because it's not like in a traditional company where you have employees that are working for you in return for money, mostly. So then the last thing to think about is identify your role in the ecosystem. So if we think about traditional service design, it's all about building a relationship between the brand and the user that has this branded experience, right? All the service touch points are branded, and we want to make sure that it's done very well. So this, of course, is quite different in the case that other people are delivering their service, who we are not fully controlling. So the brand's role becomes much more of a facilitating role, okay? They are facilitating relationships among customers. So the brand facilitates relationships in an ecosystem. That's in the end what the role of the brand will be. So it's quite different. So what are some of the key questions? So one of them is, what roles does the network need to function and who can provide it? And the second is, now that you see what the value of these kind of business models is and how they can be very disruptive to traditional business, now how can you start one and how can you step by step grow the network? So in terms of roles, we have identified sort of three different owner roles. So there's the role of the host, like Quirky. It's a design community, and the Quirky just plays a role of a host, doesn't get very active in community creation. Then there is the community creator, like GiveGav, who is very actively in the community, trying to help to create those comfort zones for people to contribute. And then one level further is things like Mozilla, who coordinates between tens of thousands of software developers and connects different software communities together. So that's what we call a community orchestrator. So you have to think what would be the right role for my business here to play. And then there are also several non-owner roles. First, three enabler roles. So there's the crowd gatherer. So everything you do that involves getting together networks of people, think about how can you use Facebook or Twitter to gather crowds quickly. And then there are builders, companies like Lithium. Lithium is a builder. They are the plumber of these networks. They can create a network like this for you. And then there are network enhancers like PayPal or like Cloud, right? With the help of Cloud, we can now better see what is the reputation of a person. And then there's these last two roles which are not really enablers, but which are sort of the more removed roles. One is the conversationalist. There was this funny brand, Hippo. Anybody knows Hippo from India? No? So Hippo is a very funny brand, and instead of talking on Twitter about the products that they have, like it's like a PepsiCo or Lay's, right? Snacks kind of brand. Instead of talking about the products, it's just providing entertainment value, like today Hippo hungry, I need some food, things like that. So it's kind of providing entertainment value. And then the other role that, for example, the BBC plays in the Get Clue platform, which is a social media platform for consuming media like TV, is a beneficiary. So they look at what's happening in the Get Clue platform and get data from it to deliver better TV services. So ultimately, or lastly, sorry, how to start and grow the network. So we like to see a PSN really as a community garden. You know, it's more organic. Okay? So the first thing you have to do when you create a garden is you have to let it emerge. So you have to create the right conditions to create a platform or exchange. The second thing is you have to plant the seeds, right? Start a network in key places with key actors and the right conditions to grow. This is quite incredible if you think about the difference how Facebook grew and how LinkedIn grew and how MySpace grew. This is because how they were seeding their network, which what people did they start. Either it was university students or it was venture capitalists in the Bay Area. So it's very different. Then you have to think about nurturing. So a garden, it grows by itself, but you cannot just leave it sit there. So you have to nurture it. So you have to encourage participation and help the network to flourish. But you also have to weed. So it's not about, oh, I created a community. A lot of clients say that, right? Oh, I created a community. I ticked the box of creating a PSN. I'm done now. No, you actually have to be quite active and discourage or filter out sort of negativity that could reduce the participation in your network or have people abandon you altogether, because nobody is there because they have to. They're only there because they want to. So you have to make sure they keep on wanting it. And that's why you also have to allow it to adapt. So you have to allow the network to fragment or specialize if it needs to, sort of to have new plants grow there. Okay? So this was my point, that network business models calls for a shift of our approach in service design. And this is about network business models. And we have a similar point of view on the personal data economy. And now we are working on Internet of Things as well, thinking about how service design needs to change with the Internet of Things. So this exercise, we're not going to do that now, but you can do that in your own time when you download the slide share. So think through these steps, maybe in pairs. We've done it at DMI once, and we could do this in half an hour, and really interesting results came out. And some of them even said that they were going to leave their job and start a new business. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Share back what you created from the exercise back to us. You can also email me, of course, and I promise I will give you some feedback. So we have this whole toolkit. If this is interesting for you, we have this whole toolkit that sort of step by step goes through these guidelines and helps to create a participatory service network. Several companies, universities, accelerators and incubators have already leveraged this toolkit. 2 startups are following these models, and several conferences like this one have also seen this. So if you're interested to explore more, I would really like to invite you to join us for the Global Service Jam in Barcelona. Everybody knows what is Global Service Jam? Yeah, great. So of course you can join in your own city, but if you say, hey, maybe I can go for that weekend to Barcelona, we will definitely be working with these tools that I was just showing you. And write us to jam@claropartners.com to make sure you get the invitation when registrations open, because from the last year we saw that it was like oversubscribed in less than a couple of days. So you have to be really on time when you get that email saying registrations are open now. So, any questions on this work?